Let's be real, if you've ever built an app, you know the feeling. It looks absolutely perfect on your device, but then on another screen, it just falls apart. It's frustrating. Well, today we are going to fix that. We're going to demystify auto layout and break down the rules, the constraints that let you build flexible, beautiful apps that look great on any screen.
So here's the game plan. We'll kick things off with a big idea behind it all. Then we'll dive into the specifics, the rules for positioning and sizing things. After that, we'll get into the really smart rules for handling unpredictable content. And finally, we'll pull it all together into a blueprint you can actually use.
First up, to really get a grip on auto layout, you kind of have to change the way you think. It's all about shifting from hard-coded numbers to building smart relationships. It feels like you're giving up control, but what you're actually doing is gaining it everywhere.
Think about it like this. You wouldn't tell a mover to place your couch at specific GPS coordinates in your living room, right? No way. You'd say, hey, center it on that wall and leave about 5 inches of space. You're describing its relationship to the room, not its exact spot on a map. And that, right there, is the heart of auto layout.
So a constraint isn't just some fixed position. It's a rule. It defines a relationship. You get the system a bunch of these rules, like center this or stay 20 points away from that, and the system does all the heavy lifting, all the math, to figure out the perfect size and position for every single screen.
Okay, let's get into our toolkit. The first set of tools is all about placement. Before you can decide how big something should be, you got to decide where it's going to live. This is all about anchoring your views.
And these are your primary anchors. This is how you lock an element in place, either relative to the screen or to another element next to it. You could pin a button to the top, or maybe you want to perfectly center an image horizontally. These rules establish that foundational position for everything else.
And this is what a constraint actually looks like when you say it out loud. See how clear that is? It's not some abstract number. It's a specific, totally understandable command. We're telling the system exactly how to place that button by describing its relationship to the edge of the screen.
All right, so our views are anchored in place. What's next? Well, now we need the rules that control how big things are and, just as important, how much space is between them and their neighbors.
This set of rules is what gives your whole UI that professional, polished feel. You're not just throwing things on the screen anymore. You're defining a consistent, visual system that just works, no matter the screen size. It creates a rhythm.
Here's a perfect example of how powerful these rules can be. With just one single constraint, the aspect ratio, you can enforce a really important design decision. It doesn't matter how the screen changes, you've guaranteed that this image will always be a perfect square. You're protecting your design's integrity.
And this is where things get really, really cool. Sure, you can set a fixed absolute size, like 100 points wide, but the real magic happens when you create these relative relationships, where one element's size literally depends on another's. This is the secret to building layouts that feel truly responsive.
Okay, now for the really clever part of the system. We've positioned our views, we've sized them, but what happens when the content inside those views is totally unpredictable?
This is a massive problem for any modern app. Think about it. You've got user-generated content, different languages that take up way more or less space, or even dynamic font sizes for accessibility. Your layout has to be smart enough to handle all of that gracefully.
So meet your layout's two best friends, content hugging and compression resistance. Think of them as bodyguards for your content. Hugging keeps a view wrapped snugly around its content, so it doesn't stretch out and look weird. And resistance does the opposite. It stops a view from getting squished so much that the text inside gets cut off.
And trust me, getting these priorities right is absolutely essential. This is what makes sure your app doesn't break when it's translated into German, which has famously long words, or when a user with a really long name signs up. It keeps things looking clean and intentional.
So we've looked at all the individual tools for positioning, for sizing, for handling all that smart adaptive stuff. For this final section, let's assemble everything into a clear blueprint you can use to build basically any layout you can imagine.
So here's the process, step by step. First, you anchor your views to lock down their position. Then, you define their size, either with fixed numbers or those powerful relative rules. Next, you set the spacing between everything to get that consistent look. And finally, you add those smart relationship rules to make sure your layout can handle whatever content you throw at it.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. Once you master this system of rules, you stop designing for just one device. You're creating a resilient, flexible blueprint that can adapt to screen sizes and even devices that don't exist yet. You're future-proofing your work.
That's the power of thinking in relationships instead of fixed coordinates. It's a whole toolkit for creating better, more accessible, and more durable user interfaces. So now that you have the blueprint, the only question left is, what are you going to build with it?